Okay. Um, my first protest was when I was around in fourth grade. We had a very polluted river in our backyard, and my father and some others finally got disgusted and angry and decided to do something about it. It was a time of protest. And we had a march on the GAF plant. We had posters. Mr. Jensen looked at me and said, "Pam, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Why are you putting dirty stuff in the river?" So I guess I've always had a bit of a fresh mouth. The work went on for a long time. Ralph Nader's Raiders came down and did the legal work, and the river did get cleaned up. So that was the first one.
Cool. So let me ask the same thing of Susan.
Okay. So I was a little too young for the civil rights and anti-war protests of the late 60s, but I remember them very, very well. I was a military brat and was in the Philippines during Vietnam. Saw a lot of destruction and people die. I didn't see it personally, but I felt it because friends of my father's that would come to our place, passed away and got killed. And so I was exposed to politics through that for a number of years. And then in high school, learning about the women's rights movement and all that entailed, and focusing. I didn't really go through protests per se, but a lot of it was just talking to people about it, talking to people and insisting that, women have the right to live our own lives the way we want to live our own lives. And so that really had a big impact on me. And at the same time, I grew up in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, living right next to Lowell and the Merrimack River. That was a cesspool. And I started really realizing how important the environment was. And most of my activism in those days was working to learn as much as I could and communicating in my own life and trying to change people's mind and their, influence their behavior. So not a lot of protesting, although we did during the 200th anniversary, people protested against corporate greed, and here we are again. So so now, and what happened over that time is, fighting for that, voting for the right people to do the work at the local level, and the Merrimack River got cleaned up, and LA's air got better, and we got the EPA, and so a lot of that happened during that time frame. So that's pretty much it for me.
Thanks, Susan. Dee, you're next. Do you want me to repeat the question, or do you think you can answer it?
I think I can remember it. You want to know what my first protest was? Yeah, I was in college. It was 68 or 69, and it was the Vietnam War. And I went by myself because I didn't know anybody who would go. I had a roommate who was foreign, who was willing to go, and then said the last minute she realized she couldn't because she was foreign. So I went by myself, and I had a good time anyhow, because there were a lot of people there. So yeah, that was a lot of stuff. I think the first time I went was the one before the big one where everybody marched through the city, and we walked past the White House and the building before it, and we put candles in the grilling around the White House so everybody would see the results of our doing it afterwards. And that was pretty cool. So that's it, I guess.
Thank you, Dee. Now, our second question is, what tools have you picked up over the years? Are these tools that you think we should be using that we are not using now in our current situation? Are there tools that we should not be using but were useful in the past? I'm going to go with Pam again first.
Right. Humor is usually effective, but don't let indignation get in the way. Because you don't want to alienate useful allies. I was an early Apple consultant, and there were 3 women, and they kept sending everybody size 3XXX and size 4XXX shirts. And then they got real huffy about respecting the brand. So at the yearly meeting, I walked up to the brand and I said, well, if you want me to, respect the brand, send me a shirt that doesn't make me look like I got out of bed with an Apple rep. Well, the Apple reps at the Mac Expos just walked away from me as far as possible because I also threatened to wear one of their shirts on the show floor that says size matters. And we did get gorgeous shirts the week later, but I was an outsider with Apple after that. So it was effective, but I lost an ally. So be careful. Welcome people. A lot of people feel uncomfortable. For them, it's a big act of courage to go to a protest or to do something. Share praise that you've heard about people, because we all need fuel. There are unexpected ways of turning weaknesses into strengths. I'm totally face blind. I don't recognize anybody. But when someone gave me some buttons a year ago to give away, I found that I could talk to strangers. And that's something that a lot of people can't do.
Yeah.
Now I see myself as an unofficial ambassador. And so I look for young people. I look for people with limited mobility. Look for those who are at their first protest. And I offer a button, a smile, some history. I make sure that they know I see them. And they smile, they feel welcome. If they don't want a button, I suggest other ways of having a symbol of daily resistance. And I suggest ways of helping neighbors, getting involved in town politics, and letting folks know of local resources and problems. And at the last No Kings, a fellow was like, no, I can't do that. I immediately clued into the fact that he was undocumented. This is when I said, well, yes, you can. I said, you can research people, you can research politics, and you can talk to people and let them share that information. You can talk about your immigration story, and you can tell that to safe people, and they can share that. So you can empower people. And that's a very valuable tool. And that's something that we need to do more of.
Thank you for that, Pam. And Susan.
Okay, so I'll start with recent years, and I'll say one of the most important tools aligned with P.A.M really is communication. Um, the biggest tool is making sure that I understand the most important things that are going on, and then communicating that with people. And at a lot of the protests, and I have friends who are protest wary, and they don't believe that it actually works. And so a lot of that is explaining to them that it is one of many tools that we have, and it's an important one, but it's not the only one. And probably more important is being well informed and then talking to people, because then they talk to people. And then those people talk to other people. And the more people who are aware of what's really happening, the more we can, you know, pull people together aligned. And so even at the last No Kings, I ended up doing a lot of crowd surfing, which is not inside my comfort zone because I'm not like P.A.M. I can't just go up to people, but I do it anyway. And I found a lot of people were saying we don't know what to do. I said, well, are you aware of, this bill that's going on in the state house, and that politics is local, and that you need to, everything you do matters, all of it. So don't feel like you're just going to protest is the only thing. It is one of the few things we need to do. We have a lot more we need to do. You need to know who your reps are. You need to pressure them to do the things you want, and you need to use your votes. Like, so those are really the most important tools that I've learned recently, because since the 80s and since the civil rights movement, it's been relatively quiet. There are pockets of things that people might do, but most people have been, I call it asleep, in the sense that everything's working okay, so we don't need to do anything, when in fact we should have been paying attention all along. And we could have stopped a lot of this if we had said, no, Reagan, you're wrong. Trickle down economics is bullshit. Right. So, and so I guess that's one thing. The other thing is also working from within. Being in a male dominated industry for all of my career, I'm an engineer, one of few women, and there have been more over the years, but really working with like mass robotics for women and bringing them in and giving them courage to explore and be assertive. And yeah, that guy's going to call you whatever. Well, that's his problem, not yours. Right. Or, talking about those things out in the open, and, really supporting, bringing people in, and I would also say, we're in Massachusetts, and the tech industry has very little people of color, for example. And I noticed that, and I'm like, well, why not? Why do we have so few? And why is that a recruiting issue? Is that an educational issue? So these are all the kinds of things that I was hoping when I was going to retire that I could like start to work on with the public school system, for instance, in town and so forth. So that's some of it. In terms of tools that I should not use, that were not useful in the past, picking your battles, really. And, like P.A.M, I tend to be a little bit of a loudmouth, and I say what I think, and sometimes it hits people the wrong way. So trying to learn more about body language and understanding where people are at, so then maybe you can tailor your conversation to them and where they're at. Something I've been trying to do. I'm not really good at it yet. I'm getting better. So I hope that answered the question for people.
Yeah, that I love everything that you guys are saying. So, Dee, the question is to you.
I don't have a lot to say on this. I think a good question is what Susan referred to, is knowing where people are at and talking that way. Always remember who your audience is instead of assuming that they know where you're coming from. And the other thing is just I'm not loud enough. And so it took me a long time to reach a point where I would reach out to people and say, hey, I want to do this. What do you think? Or something like that. And I think you need to be interested enough that you will reach out to people and get them involved with you, instead of waiting until they come to you and they don't know who you are, so they don't come to you, and then you never get involved. And no, that's not good. So those are the main things I have on this point. I have more to say about how people get involved. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Which does bring me to the third question. What would you like to say to people who are new to activism today in terms of how to get involved and how to educate themselves about politics and the law? How do you see the differences in generational activism impacting what we are currently trying to accomplish? And Pam, you're on.
Okay, the first thing is that meaningful change takes time. Women had to fight for the vote for more than 40 years, and they only won by one male vote. My mom was 1 year old when she got the right to vote. I grew up in a time of protest and argument, and a lot these topics were in people's mouths. They were talked about, they were argued about. People got physically hassled about them. But because it was in the common discourse, the legislators followed it. And we have to get these issues and these details into common conversation. That's one thing that's handy about my buttons. I wear them. When I go to Leahy Clinic, I end up, giving buttons away. Okay. The PAs want them. My doctors want them. When I make an appointment, I say, oh, no, I can't do it on a Wednesday because I'm going to be protesting. So I let people know what's going on, and we all have to work that into our conversation.
Okay.
But change doesn't happen at the speed that we want. Okay?
Yeah.
We have to expect mockery. Okay. If you look at old cartoons and postcards, they're full of it. The first mockery of women drivers was about women bicyclists. Okay. So just, accept the mockery. It's a long road, so it's okay to get on and off the work. Don't wear yourself out. Refuel yourself. Now, the big thing is our government has never worked for everybody. It's certainly not working for young people now. But our government is aspirational, which means it's our job to improve it. Now, these times have shown us where the weak points are. And that's an advantage in that we know what needs to be repaired. And if we grow young politicians, these would be the people who would work on the next constitutional convention, perhaps. The first one was hell. They had to lock people in to get them to work together. So we shouldn't expect it would be easy. One thing I learned from divorce, from my very wise attorney, who was, by the way, the first button lady, is that a good compromise means that nobody wins. A good compromise means that everybody walks away dissatisfied, but they got something done. So, you know, we're a very diverse country. We can't expect to get everything that we want. They can't expect to get everything they want. We and they is a problem. Okay. So we have to work on the injustices. We have to look at the solutions, and we have to realize that the fixes are going to take some 20 years, if not more. It's a long road, but we've got good company.
Thank you, Pam. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the question for you, Susan. What would you like to say to people who are new to activism today in terms of how to get involved and how to educate themselves about politics and the law? How do you see the differences in generational activism impacting what we are currently trying to accomplish?
So everything that Pam said, of course, when I read this question to begin with, I said, wow, that's a loaded question. Because it's very complicated, and a lot of it has to do with the history of the last 60 years since the New Deal, really. And so when I talk to people, and actually I have young people in my family who have become activated and have helped them through freakouts of what's going on and trying them to understand that we're in a war. It's going to be a long slog. And you take your wins where you can, and you work on the things that you didn't win. But really, it's keeping yourself informed, being aware of what's really happening. I think the biggest thing that has happened is people are not informed, and it's work to be informed. But I think the more people that are informed, the less work it is for everyone. And that's the biggest thing, is that knowing what's going on, because you can't do anything or even change anything if you don't know what's actually happening. And you can communicate that with people and build a consensus around being with people that are aligned with your values. Right? That's the biggest thing, is joining with others who are aligned, communicating to your network what's going on. And especially in this time where we have such a division, such a major division, much, much more than I can ever remember. It's hard. It's not easy. And a lot of those people who are MAGA, you may not be able to bring into your tent. And I know there are people that I can't bring into my tent because they can't see it. So it's very, very challenging. But I think if you know, when I started for this round last year, I hadn't done it in a long time. And I'm like, I don't even know who to go to. Who's protesting? What group should I join? And that's how I got involved with 5051. I'm on the newsletter, which was where I started and where I've stayed, because I feel that's part of communication. We're writing about what's going on. We're informing people. You can share that. And it all matters. And then, you know, bringing that down to the state level in Massachusetts, and then to your town. I guess the thing that I get from young people in particular is I don't have time for that. You know, especially if they're launching their careers and then they have a family, and by the end of the day they're working 40 hours a week. Where am I going to find time for that? And I go, well, that's what your community is for, to help you. You know, form a group where you don't have to actually find out everything that's going on. They can help you they do a little bit, you do a little bit. And so getting involved matters, and it also helps build community. And that kind of leads to the next one, right? Yeah. So that's happened for me, for sure, with 5051. And I'm also part of my local Indivisible group, which has been incredibly valuable. Just, you know, even right now I'm going through some family things, so I can't do the activism I want to do because I just can't. but they're doing it and I know what's going on and I'm paying attention so that when my workload eases up, I'll be able to get back into it more. So I hope that answers the question for people.
There are no wrong answers.
It's not
So,
perfect. It certainly is not perfect.
yeah. So, Dee, would you like me to repeat the question for you, or you think you got it?
No, repeat it, please.
Sure. What would you like to say to people who are new to activism today in terms of how to get involved and how to educate themselves about politics and the law? How do you see the differences in generational activism impacting what we are currently trying to accomplish?
Oh, okay. Well, when you first start out, you ask yourself if you know anybody else who's involved in it. But if you don't let that stop you. Because I didn't know enough people when I started. And I just kept going. And I think as I got older, I got better at talking to people. I mean, I think about how I was when I first started and how I am now. And there's a whole difference. I just keep trying until I find the right person. So you keep doing that. You read what you can. And I've acquired a whole bunch of new people to subscribe to because of my research on this stuff. So, and I just keep doing it and I keep pushing, and the more I do it, the more people I meet. So I'm meeting new people again. That's it. It's just keep on going. And and the difference between the generations, I think you need to learn to be more welcoming. So don't let somebody's age put you off, because they might be a good resource if you just listen to them and stop deciding they're not savvy enough because they're the wrong age. They don't fit with you. The people that are interested, and that's what's important. It's not whether they're the same age as you or not. Okay, that's it.
Thanks. That's all great advice. So, our next question is what does community within the current political climate mean to you, and how have you found other activists, and how do you support each other? Go ahead, Pam.
Okay. I had gone to several Boston area protests alone, and 2019, I put a note up on the Woburn Facebook group asking if anyone would go to the 2019 Super Happy Fun America protest in Boston, and two women who are now friends said sure. And so we went to stand with the Allies, and it was a good thing because I ended up fracturing an ankle in a conga dance. So I did have a ride to the hospital. But they invited me into Woburn Welcomes, which is a great group which started up with the Muslim ban. And I later became a Woburn Dam. I've become a lot more active in my community. And I've begun to see the local heroes that most communities have.
Mm-hmm.
These are the quiet people who do amazing things, an amazing amount of work and dedication. Community is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And these, people have great ideas. They do need thanks from time to time. Sometimes you can come up, you can augment one of their ideas, or you can help. Someone can write a grant to make an idea happen. the with Trump's second term, I was going to every protest I possibly could, and Heather Cox Richardson had some wise advice, which was pick a lane. And I went to the first protest at the Burlington facility on a Saturday, and it's like, that's it. For me, that distills everything, because it's about our constitutional rights, it's about our Declaration, it's about the grievances in the Declaration, and it's about human rights. So that's where my focus has been. I've got lovely Haitian neighbors across the street. This is about people in my community, about what my country stands for. So that's where my focus has been. And that's been a way of staying sane. But it's also been an important way of educating people. So I'm part of several activist groups, and I participate at my own level so I don't drive myself crazy. And I'm in awe of the work and gifts that people bring. I could not possibly organize even a small protest. So when I give out buttons or I talk to people, I'm just gliding on top of someone else's hard work. And I try and thank people and for their work. And I make a point of trying to tell people the compliments I've heard about them, because lots of times people don't compliment people directly. But I'm really heartened by the amount of hard work, creativity, the willingness to learn that I've seen among people around activists. Well, there's a problem. How can we forge a solution? The willingness to find, to fix, to help is extraordinary. And that is absolutely inspiring.
Thank you. Susan, I will repeat the question for you. What does community within the current political climate mean to you, and how have you found other activists, and how do you support each other?
Wow, it means several different things, not just personally, but well, let me start with how I found other activists. I just went outside of my comfort zone and started talking to people and reaching out when I saw the protests in my town. Who's running those? And just going after finding out who that is, and then just showing up at the meetings and getting to know the people who also care. And then I've always been an independent, not a Democrat or a Republican, but I joined the town Democratic Committee, and I became a Democrat just so I could learn about who are you. I live in this town my whole life, and I don't know half of these people, and I should know them, right? So I'm like, this building this community and knowing each other and having, really aligned values. For me is what my community is today, but I'm hoping it moves broader than that. So for instance, in the neighborhood that I live in, I know a lot of my neighbors. Have I talked to them about this stuff yet? No, I have signs in my yard, right? But what I really want to do when it starts getting nicer out is I want to start knocking on people's doors and saying, hi, I'm your neighbor. How do you feel about what's going on? Or, seeing what's what. And if I get the door shut in my face, I know where they stand. So I'll move on to the next one, right? Um, and having that connection with people so that when we need each other, we're there. Um, for example, when the SNAP thing happened earlier last year, was that? Our whole group we just, exploded with community, service and making sure people had food, and those that, relied on SNAP that weren't getting it, we would be donating to them directly, and who's going to the grocery store, that kind of thing. Or the immigrant thing, when that started last year, driving people, a student back and forth from Billerica High School because I don't want them to get picked up. And I don't even know these people, but you get to know them and you feel like you're part of something. And that's what's going to keep us together. And that's what's going to keep our democracy over time. And as P.A.M said, it is going to take a long time, and having patience is hard, but I think that's what we need to do. And having community makes that patience easier. Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. And Dee, I'll repeat the question for you.
Okay.
What does community within the current political climate mean to you? And how have you found other activists, and how do you support each other?
That's a good question. I think part of it is paying attention to what's going on around me and just, oh, okay, and then taking the conversation from there. And just building on it. I mean, I live in one town. I operate in a different town a lot of the time. So I'm not limited to where I live. And I just keep reaching out. I mean, I try different things, and I'm not as good at organizing as I am at following something that's already organized. So that's hard, but I just keep trying. I think it's important to keep trying, because the more you try, the more people you will meet, and the more people you will find who are on the same level you're at. I guess that's it.
Thanks, you guys, for answering all those questions. Those were the ones. Those were the questions that I had prepared. I'm going to throw a surprise question that's pretty simple. If you could just answer what groups or teams are you working with MAST 5051, and what brought you to 5051, if you haven't already answered that question?
Okay.
Go ahead, P.A.M. I'm going to start with you. I think you answered it
Okay,
partly.
I was brought to 5051 by the concept of getting the country mobilized in such an exciting and dynamic way.
Yeah.
When I heard about the hands-off protest, I thought it was important to get people to go and to know about it. And so I got on Reddit and didn't know anything about how to use it, and broke that barrier, and encouraged people to go. It's like, yes, you can go alone, or if it's not safe for you to go, you can make posters, you can do this, you don't feel worthless.
Yeah.
please don't feel worthless if you can't go to a protest, because there are many loving things that you can do. And yes, protests are safe. But it's, so I just sort of became sort of a go. So don't really have sort of a formal role in 5051 because I'd started giving out buttons in the February of 2025. And so I've don't know if I'd be on the street team or whatever, but I am feel very much a part of the community of 5051, and I really value the people. Yeah, they're good people, good information, and fabulous ethics.
Yeah, we certainly feel like you're one of us. That's for sure. Okay, same question to you, Susan. If you haven't already answered it, go ahead.
So back in February, well, after 2 weeks after he was in office, I started to become very alarmed like I have never been alarmed in my entire life. Just like this guy has to go. What the last time around was bad, and now this is worse. And so, in searching for, I was just looking for protests because I didn't know what else I could do. And my nephew, who is 30 years younger than me, said, there's this thing called 5051. And I just said, oh, I got it. And I went and did a little research, found the first protest. It was before the hands off. It was sometime was that early March or maybe late February, going to the Common and just doing it and meeting people and walk right up to the tables and give me the information. I grabbed a bunch of cards, and then I got on Discord. And I'd never been on Discord before. I knew nothing about it. I don't play games, but I'm an engineer. I can figure it out, right? So met Brian, spent lots and lots of hours talking with him. The support that I feel I get from this group of people, whether I know them or not, is phenomenal and has helped.
Yeah.
I just feel like the support that you get from this group is incredibly important. And that's also an important activism resistance, just to have, like, I'm feeling like crap and really worried about X, and you have someone to talk to about it, right? Especially in those early days. It's less so now because I'm so busy. I'd like to spend more time on it. And when my family stuff settles, hopefully, I actually want to do more. I've been on the newsletter team from the beginning. Because I really like to, I don't write a lot myself. I used to in college, but I like reading about what other people are writing and I get inspired. And sometimes I start something and then life hits and I can't get to finish it. But yeah, I mean, I've been to a couple of the events and things like that. A lot more last year, D-Day, May Day, all of them. And I'd like to do more of that in the coming year. So yeah. I do also have an indivisible group, so I kind of try to balance that because I'm on the leadership team there as well. So yeah. And the other thing I want to say is that one of the things that I learned really early, having been in technology and being a manager at these companies and leading projects, my personality is one where I see a ball dropped, I pick it up and I start running with it. And what I learned was not to do that with this group because there's so much talent here that may be different from mine. You guys need to grow your wings. And then so I stepped back a little bit because I feel like the growth of the people in this organization is important. And I would rather my role be advisory because I'm learning from you. So, so it's all, I guess that's also community, right?
Mm.
Yeah, that's it.
That's amazing. Thank you, Susan. Dee, so we've had a little trouble with getting you into our Discord and with
That's okay.
getting the tech up. But I just want to say you're there now, and you are definitely one of our volunteers. So tell us what is it that you do within Mass 5051? What are you working on?
Well, the main things I'm working on right now is working with another person on researching for people who could be involved with things at the government level in Lowell. And we're just getting started with that. They had a question on the board, and unfortunately they they didn't accept it properly because they decided they couldn't do anything, and it's not true because we know other towns that are already doing things. So we've got to work on it some more, and so we've got to do more research. But that's the main thing I'm working on. Otherwise, I just volunteer here and there because my friend is involved with peacekeeping and doing research on that. Um, so, and he's the one I find out about things. So when I find out there's something else I can do, yeah, okay, I can do that. That's basically it. Just I'm floating here and there and plugging in where I can.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to take a little break here for people to do bathroom break or whatever they need. But if that was all the prepared questions that I have, if anybody wants to ask a question of our panelists, go ahead and take a few minutes to put them into the chat, and we will get to your questions next.
Well, so we've completed our pre-written questions and we're now moving on to questions from the audience. We do have a question from someone in our audience. Raven, would you like me to read that out loud or would you like to read it?
I'll go ahead and read it.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a good
Hi,
question.
guys. This is from Kirby. Thanks for the insight as a young person, if 30 still counts. Most of my friends and people are around me are just facing immense amounts of burnout and a lack of hope that any of our many avenues of resistance will have an impact. Where does that spark from that encourages you to get up and help people around you? Go ahead, Susan.
Yes, 30 still counts. I would say that one of the things that I encourage my nephew and my own children, because they're in the same situation where they're feeling like what is when I see something that is inspiring or helpful, especially Heather Cox Richardson, frankly, I share that with them, or talk about how what's going on now has happened before, and this is when it's happened before. Remember your history, so and also really just talking about how they're feeling. Honestly, just talking about it, acknowledging it, saying, yeah, you're going to be burnt out. So take a break and then get back on the horse because we need everyone riding. So that it's really also a combination of that and joining with other people who feel the same way. Like when I was talking about the Discord last year and talking with Brian and a lot of other people that are on that channel, part of what kept me going was knowing I wasn't alone.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not alone. Um, and it doesn't feel like what you're doing matters because democracy takes a long time, but it's worth it in the end because you get to choose how you live your life and not someone else telling you. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Susan. Pam or Dee, do either one of you want to answer that question?
Well, the Women's March was not so much about protests, but about reframing things on a daily basis. Men would rush ahead of women in order to open doors for them. And a lot of times it looked really stupid. And, so if I was in front of someone, I would hold the door for them. And I remember a man just refusing to go through the door. No, 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 I can't do that. You're a woman. I can't go through that door. It's like, I've got all day. And that was radical and political. Okay. And I don't know, I was 14, 15, 16. And so if you can laugh at it, if you can laugh at the stupidness of a lot of the situations, it helps. Because if you sometimes the situations that lead to burnout are actually quite comic when you reframe them. But and so I would just sometimes they're just repetitive. It's like, I'm not Miss, I'm not Mrs., I'm Ms. Well, why are you being difficult? Well,
Not.
you're Mr. Should I call you murderer? uh, how should I, differentiate with you and, put them on and a difficult thing. So a lot of it was just making other people uncomfortable so that I didn't get burned out. But yes, it was and sometimes it's just being a real stupid, annoying person.
No.
Yeah. Humor is a good thing. Being too earnest, I think, can be deathly, because um, if you just look at how silly other people look when they're trying to cling to um, things that just don't work, they're the ones that are being ridiculous, and they're the ones that are looking silly. Um, so um, that's what I do. But also feed yourself with things that bring you joy, with friends, with the arts, with nature.
Dee, would you like to answer this question too?
Yeah. I would I would say it's reaching out and sharing with people is important. And I don't know, you just need to follow your heart and do what feels good for you, and let everything else fall where it may. You'll meet some people that won't like what you're doing, and they can go, and you can keep looking for the people who do like what you're doing, and they'll join you, or they'll join you sometimes. I think you just have to keep trying. You don't sit in your seat and ignore what's going on because you don't know who to reach out to. Just keep trying, because the more you try, the more you will find of people who will gravitate to what you interested in. Oh, that's pretty much it. Just keep trying and keep reaching out, and yeah.
Thank you, Dee. I think you had a question too, Kat?
I did, yeah. So we began this panel by asking each panelist to describe their first protest. And I would like to know, if you can think back to that protest again, was there any particular artwork or other type of creative resistance tactic that really stood out in that time? And if so, I would love to know about it.
The music, the music, just all the protest songs. So the last year I've been going, where are the protest songs? There's no protest songs. I can play the old ones. I want the new ones, and they're starting to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple, like I had a couple weeks ago on my title feed, there was like 2 or 3 fuck ICE, and I'm going, yes, about time. Yeah, so music. I also wanted to say one more thing about the burnout, and that is that if you're feeling burnt out, and I have myself recently in particular because I've got other things going on, let yourself rest. The thing that I keep going over in my head is, what do I need to do to take care of myself? Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to fight for another day.
Yeah.
So you step back and take a break. That's okay. And important, actually. So.
Yeah.
But music.
Okay. Yeah. Go
My
ahead,
first
P.A.M.
protest, didn't really have meaningful art, but growing up with the Vietnam protests and the civil rights protests, music was so important. And mainstream rock and roll was with the movement.
Mm.
And that helped carry the conversation.
Mm.
And it's important to get the issues into common conversation, to weave them in. And when songs bring joy, when they're beautiful to sing, or when they're funny to sing, they're great. I was in, I think, the last big Vietnam protest in DC. And I still remember some of the songs that I learned on that march.
Mm.
And yeah, there are some good musicians that are coming up with good protest songs. They're not as well known because music is so much more diversified. We have more channels, and these people don't have big record companies behind them, so they don't have the money to go do protests. But it's the singing is good, and I hope we'll get more of it.
All right, Dee, do you
Yeah.
remember anything? Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things I remember from that time was that the there was a success. So Nixon didn't come to the protest, and he took buses to ring around the White House so they were safe from us protesters. But they actually couldn't do something because everybody in the protest was in favor of something. So we got something even though they didn't intend for us to get anything from it. And that was really, really important because it kept us going, and we just kept pushing after that because we got something. And we eventually won. So it took a few more years, but we got there.
That's awesome. So I think we can start to wrap this up. I just want to say my own answer to that question, Kat, was I don't remember songs or anything like that or music, but I do remember that I wrote a poem, and there was a lot of spoken word at the stage for those first few protests that I went to. And if you're somebody who has not signed up with Mass 5051 and you don't get our newsletter, then you're missing out on my story and my answers to these questions, because that was published in this week's newsletter.
Oh.
So, with that, I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists and to our wonderful tech person. Thank you, Kat. And if you have any more questions for us, you can join us on our Discord and ask them there. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.